Since the announcement of Fallout 76 as an entirely online game, Fallout fans have been having a nuclear meltdown, swearing this game is a cash grab. It's dead on arrival. It's a Rust clone, Destiny clone, DayZ clone, and every kind of clone you can imagine. So many Fallout fans feeling betrayed and announcing this as the death of Bethesda. They shout, "Bethesda has sold out! Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be online pay-to-win game! Good gaming is over! Todd Howard is the Antichrist who ruined my childhood!" Okay, maybe they're not, saying all that, but pretty close to it. Pretty close to it. People have seriously lost their damn minds. They even set up a petition on change.org to have Bethesda build a solo campaign only mode into the game. Well, Todd Howard said that later down the road, after the beta testing and the launch, there will be moddable private servers, or a service for such a thing, something like that. But they're not going to build an entirely solo-driven game on top of that. If they did, it would take years of development, and it would be called Fallout 5. People are truly passionate about Fallout. Fallout isn't just a video game. It's a sacred world that people have a deep and emotional attachment to. And when you fuck with Fallout, they get angry. Which is flattering to Bethesda, to know they've done more than create one more video game. They've created a subculture, like Star Wars or Star Trek. It's not a movie or a series, it's a cultural phenomenon. Remember how there were nearly riots over Jar Jar Binks? He's ruining the franchise! George Lucas sold out! Now personally, I think Jar Jar is secretly a Sith Lord, but that's neither here nor there. Now admittedly, the fears being expressed by Fallout fans could very well be reality when the game is launched. Here's what we know about Fallout 76. It takes place in West Virginia in the year 2076. It has creatures from West Virginia mythology. The map will be 4 times the size of Fallout 4. There will be 24 to 32 people per server. It is entirely online, and there is not, nor will there be, an offline mode. You will never see the server, but private servers will be an option down the road. There will be no modding at launch, but there will be modding later on. VATS does exist, but in real time. There will be nukes, which may or may not be used for griefing. We get inconsistent answers with, "We're still dialing that in," as the most common statement. There will be PvP, if you want, or it might be forced on you. "We're still dialing it in," says Todd Howard. You won't lose your gear when you're killed. Now let's take a look at the concerns. Griefing, trolling, service interruption due to bad internet, server overload, long server maintenance, DDoS attacks, or people who are using internet with limited data. Microtransactions, grinding, no mods. Now let's analyze that. When it comes to griefing, the jury is still out on that one. Trolling/harassing. Depending on the PvP mechanics, and assuming you can mute a player, this may not really be an issue. Service interruptions, etc. This is unfortunately a universal problem with online games. But normally, server overload, maintenance, DDoS attacks are very rare temporary things that don't consistently ruin the gaming experience. And if you have limited or unreliable internet, then this game and all online games are simply not for you. Microtransactions. Todd said, and I believe it was at the E3 presentation, that the only microtransactions would be for cosmetic items. Grinding is normally an element of pay-to-win MMOs. This is an online survival game with no pay-to-win microtransactions, therefore probably won't feel grindy. And then mods. Todd Howard said there will eventually be support for mods, and private servers. So maybe the mods will only be for the private servers. However, he didn't go into detail, and so the jury's still out on that one. I'm going to show you some clips from the E3 presentation and from the Fallout 76 documentary from Noclip. We're going to take a look at this and really get an idea of what kind of a game we might be getting.
Now, most people don't know West Virginia that well. It is an incredible array of natural wonders, towns, and government secrets. This is where the actual nuclear secrets are. And the quest the Overseer sends you on will take you through 6 distinct regions, each with their own style, risks, and rewards. There's plenty of cool new Fallout creatures, and we even use the folklore of West Virginia to bring our Fallout versions to life.
I've heard a lot of people complaining that Todd Howard was being a little deceitful when he said the game would have a solo mode, because that would infer that you could play it single player. And there's a difference between single player and playing it solo. You can play any MMO solo. And it wasn't until he was pressed in some interview and specifically asked, will the game have an offline mode? And he said, no, it's entirely online. But here's the thing I want to point out. Todd Howard said right in that E3 presentation the game would be entirely online.
We have always wanted to tell that story of what it would be like for you and the other characters who were first to leave the vaults. But there is one big difference with this game. It's that each of those characters is a real person. Because yes, Fallout 76 is entirely online. Fallout 76 is entirely online. Fallout 76 is entirely online. Okay. I know, there's a lot. You have like 1,000 questions right now. So I'm going to go through them in order. Now, I'll hit a couple of the big ones. First, of course, you can play this solo. All right? You'll be who you want, exploring a huge world, doing quests, experiencing a story, and leveling up. We love those things about our games, too. It would not have it any other way. Like previous Fallouts, you can play this game solo and quest. But the easiest way to survive in the wasteland is to team up and build together.
I've heard people complain, as I just mentioned earlier, that, any online MMO game, or practically every MMO game, you could play it single, you could, or solo, you could play Battlefield and completely ignore all of your companions and your teammates, you can just totally ignore them, you can pretty much get through anything solo. That doesn't mean it's going to be a fun experience, and it doesn't mean that's the way the game was meant to be played. Well, my rebuttal to that is, when Todd said you could solo your way through this, the way he said it, it seems to me like they took great care to make sure that you didn't really feel this need to team up with people if you really didn't want to. That you could still just play the game by yourself, ignoring everybody, and doing all these quests and just doing your own thing and ignoring the rest of the group, the rest of the people on the server. And it would still be a fun experience. But the real fun comes from being able to share this experience with other people online. So I think that's what he was getting at. So I'm actually kind of optimistic about it, and I do not believe that he was in any way being deceitful when he said, you could play this game solo because it's something they really enjoy about Bethesda games is you're not forced to be with other people and playing their games. You can just kind of solo this your own. So I don't think he was being deceitful about that, because he said in the same presentation, it's entirely online. So he was making no effort to deceive. Now, how can you have an online game where you've got like 24 to 32 other people on the server, because that's the server size? How can you have that and ignore everybody and still have fun? How can you do that? Well, I don't know. You'll have to buy the game and find out if you can really have a fun and enjoyable experience being a lone wolf, being the lone wanderer. You'll just have to buy the game and see if it's been built in a way that really does allow for that. Todd claims it is, but, we won't know until we actually have the game. Here are some details about the map and what you can expect to encounter.
Actually, every game starts with a map. Fallout 76, we decided, it's going to be set in West Virginia, and the first thing we did is we made the map. I believe it's always been 4 times the size of Fallout 4. It was pretty big.
Now, some people have complained that just because the map is 4 times larger doesn't mean that it's going to be 4 times the amount of activity. Well, it's kind of hard to quantify how many activities you have. I mean, what counts as an activity? That's very debatable. And 20 million boring generic fetch quests is 20 million quests, it's 20 million events, but let's face it, that's pretty boring. I'd rather have a few really awesome, really in-depth quests than 20 million fetch quests. So there's really no way of telling this. However, I suspect that the game is actually going to have a lot going for it. It's not going to be, what do they say, an ocean in size but a puddle in depth or something. I forget the terminology that some people have used, but I don't believe it's going to be that. I don't believe it's just going to be, a really large empty map with nothing to do. And here are some clips which give me reason to believe that it is going to have a lot of stuff in there.
Todd sits with designers and to figure out, what story points we're gonna have.
There was just the small handful of us leads, like deciding what to do, like starting to lay out the map of the world and figuring out how to take an entire state and shrink it down. Because before we did, like a city and then the area around it, but we decided to do all of West Virginia.
West Virginian myths are among the creepiest in American folklore. Isolated villages trapped in vast, unforgiving wilderness has fueled terrifying stories of creatures that prey on unfortunate souls. There's the Grafton Monster, a giant pale-skinned headless horror that prowls the woods outside of Grafton. There's the Flatwood Monster with its terrifying cowl and beady eyes. The Snallygaster, a dragon-like demon that haunts an area outside of neighboring DC. And of course, the Mothman, a winged beast with piercing red eyes that prey on those in the Point Pleasant area. Like wandering the real woods of West Virginia, the world of Fallout 76 is full of monsters to hunt or be hunted by. There are far more creatures in 76 too, more varied types of enlarged insects, and everything from two-headed possums to giant sloths, and even intelligent plants. So this world has yet to be reclaimed by one faction or another, and so the decision was made to leave West Virginia bereft of other humans. But this caused a problem. Gun combat with AI is a central pillar of the Fallout experience, so they leaned into the lore and created a new faction of intelligent ghouls called the Scorched.
Where they're kind of like feral ghouls that are not quite so far gone. They still know how to use guns, so that's essentially our raiders, are the Scorched. But yeah, then most of the other things are just all the creatures and things like that. And I think it's like 63 things that we have now, because we had all the ones that we had before, updated and fixed those, and then add all these new ones too.
Nuclear missile silos, and even a crashed space station. The world of 76 is larger and more detailed than their previous games, and featuring a bunch of new technology that the team may just be testing out for future games.
The hills and the topography of the area, it's really beneficial for that, because Fallout 4 was actually like a really flat game, so it's hard to get those landmarks. Thankfully there's like skyscrapers and Diamond City, that giant glow, but in this case we have like an entire mountain range that bisects the map. So we can take that and put all these different landmarks on that. Like we made this ski resort called the Top of the World, which basically looks like a giant red UFO, and that's like a thumbtack in the middle of the map that you can orient yourself around. And then we have the giant bucket wheel excavator on another side. But it's also designed in that way where you're supposed to sort of lose where you're at once you go down in those hills. So you're deep in the valley, you're like, where am I at? And so you're encouraged to actually then go up the hill, and then we put all these like watchtowers and stuff, so then you're like, that's where I am, and pull out the binoculars and look around.
Honestly, it seems to me that they have put a lot of work into this. We've got a ton more creatures. They use the words more details, whatever that's supposed to mean, because it's rather subjective. They've taken the state of West Virginia, and they've taken landmarks, and they've shrank it down. Shrank? Or is it shrunk? Shrunken? Whatever. They've miniaturized it so that it actually fits into the size of a Fallout map. Because you obviously could not create a map that is legitimately the size of West Virginia. That's ridiculous. But they tried to take the landmarks and put them relatively where they should be, and went through a lot of work to really make that as accurate as they could. I've even seen a separate video, I don't remember where it is, where some guy is mapping out where the stuff is going to be, theoretically, based on a map you get when you pre-order the game. And so it seems like they put a lot of really hard work into the map. I don't think it's going to be, the size of an ocean, but the depth of a puddle. Of course, I could be wrong. Now, one of the big things that people have brought up, and to be honest, this worries me too, is if all other NPCs are going to be human beings, then how many quests do you get? Now, they say that there's, a quest, but they don't tell you there's like 1,000,000 quests. You know what I'm saying? Ways in which you can be given a quest are through holotapes, through notes, through computer terminals, through robots, maybe some of the monsters. Like maybe some of these creatures can talk to you, and that can set you on a really huge quest. We really don't know. And not everyone who gives you a quest has to be a human being. But it is stuff like this that really starts to make me think that maybe there really isn't a lot of actual questing that you can do solo.
Basics. Fallout 76 is online. You can play as a lone wanderer if you so choose, but there are no private maps or offline mode to speak of. There is a story and there are quests, but the focus of this game is on the player dictating what they want to do that day.
What I want to do this day and every day is have deep, meaningful dialogue with NPCs and presented with quests and options that are morally ambiguous. But it doesn't sound like I'm going to get that. However, that's also the guy who was making the documentary who was saying that, not someone who actually worked at Bethesda. So, take it with a grain of salt. But it just sounds like, yeah, there's a story. I mean, it does exist, it is there, but it's not the main focus. That's kind of what I got out of it, but like I said, that wasn't Bethesda who said it. It was the guy who made the documentary. There's going to be a lot of crafting in this game. It seems like a rather central part of the game, which could be a good thing or a bad thing.
Depends on the situation, the timing, and the area. And when you take them and you fortify them, you actually have access to resources that are super valuable for crafting. So you'll get access to ore, some kind of ore, lead, and then lead's used for make bullets. And then you can make bullets, which in that game, any of these games is super helpful, right? So you take that for a reason. Then, like I said, you have your camp, which are mini workshops you can place almost anywhere. There's certain restrictions on that because we don't want you the griefing outside the exit of the vault, but you can place them all over. They go, when you move servers, if that space is available, your camp will just be there. For some reason, again, this is a big game with a low number of people, it's overlapping and we can't place it there, it will be packed up and blueprinted, you can place it somewhere else, boom. And then the crafting is a huge part of the game because again, you're gonna wanna find very specific creatures or flora to combine for recipes. We are allowing crafting mods, crafting guns, crafting ammo, food, water, armor, power armor pieces, like the stuff that was there before and more.
This could be a lot of fun, or it could be a nightmare of non-stop grinding. Because Todd Howard said there would only be microtransactions in the form of cosmetic items. It is unlikely that gathering resources is going to be made into a deliberate grind fest. In most cases where collecting resources is an insane grind, it's because the game was designed to make you frustrated so that you would go out and buy items or buy crafting items with your credit card. In other words, to support microtransactions. But Todd said the microtransactions would only be for cosmetic stuff. It wouldn't be pay to win. Something that has always been a concern for me is what happens when you reach max level? How much playability will the game have when everybody on the server is all maxed out? In most MMOs, this isn't a problem because reaching max level is extremely hard due to its microtransactions-inspired grind system. Also, you are running around with hundreds or thousands of other players of differing levels. But in Fallout 76, you're only going to be on a server with 24 or maybe 32 other people. Total, I mean. And it theoretically shouldn't be a grind fest. Well, that question was answered by this part of the Noclip documentary.
And then you can build a cooking stove, like most survival games, make the food more efficient. We put diseases in. We have something called mutations. So Fallout 4, we had that inverse meter for your health and your rads. The more rads you had, the less your health was, and you're able to cure that. So in this game, the more rad you have, the more chances you get mutated, and they have all sorts of neat, like they're almost like traits from Fallout 1 and 2 where they have a plus and a minus. You can cure them if you don't like them, or there's ways to permanently get them if there's ones you really like, way late game stuff. But yeah, you'll get these mutations, and they're mostly gameplay. They're not, some of them are visual, but they're mostly gameplay side stuff that like tweak your character a little.
Each time you level up in Fallout 76, you get to pick a new perk card. There's a limited amount you can have active at one time, meaning that if you want to re-roll your character's perks, you simply swap out your perk cards. You can also share perk cards within a party, meaning that teams of players can specialize to work together more efficiently.
Tool their characters such that they are better at survival elements of the game. Then you might be combat-y, other person might be more for a medic, one person might be more, workshop like defenses and repair. So you decide you want to focus in on crafting. You have to find the recipes in the world. You get recipes all sorts of places, quests and random drops and loot. And so there's a lot. Like compared to Fallout 4, there are orders of magnitude more. And so you'll find the ones that are most efficient. A lot of them have pluses and minuses. I think that's more fun. It allows a player to make decisions. So one might make you more like susceptible to disease, but give you a huge health buff. Anyway, you'll be able to focus on that. Either trade them with your friends. We're exploring the possibility of allowing you to set up a robot vendor in a hub area. So you have a robot vendor and that's your vendor, and you go up and again, we're exploring things.
So we'll be getting mutations that change our attributes. Even when you reach max level, there will be perk cards. There will be more perk cards than your character can have at one time. So it won't be a bunch of people with exactly the same maxed out perks, even at endgame. And I think that's actually very brilliant. Let's move on to the issue of griefing. The griefing issue is rather ambiguous. We are told that players can kill players, but then we are told you don't lose your progress or your gear, you just respawn nearby. Or maybe the words were not so far away, something like that. But then Todd alludes to the idea that you don't have to worry about PvP if you don't want. However, when he was asked if there was a way to fully opt out of the PvP experience, he answered with, well, and basically, no. Or at least he said, we're dialing that in. So it's kind of undetermined at this moment. But here are some comments that Bethesda made in the Noclip documentary about Fallout 76.
People and systems, that's where you say like, oh, this is still Fallout. Like if you sit down and play it, it feels like Fallout, but its loop and mood are very different. Right. The other players are a system that we don't control in a great way. Let's not shy away from it. Let's kind of solve it. Let them collide. And where there's extra bad griefing or systems, we have a number of levers in place. But that for me is where a lot of the drama is. Like, let's let them all collide. And it'll be messy for a little bit, but we can solve it. I'd rather do that than like play it safe. It's like boring. You can sit though in any design meeting and come up with like a list of reasons not to do something.
Right.
It's pretty easy. Like, well, I'm worried about this, and I'm worried about this, and I'm worried about this, and I'm like, I'm worried it's gonna be boring. Like, let's at least try it. Like this is what we do. Like, let's at least like, if this is a vibe we want, let's go at it.
One of the things that Todd pushed for the whole time, which we were all scared about a little, was you're gonna open up the paper map and see this huge area, and you're gonna see where the other people are, for good or ill. Right, so do you want to go help them? Do you see them, they're doing this huge event that you can join in and get the big reward? Do you want to try to shoot them, however that our PvP system ends up working out? Do you want to trade with them? They will become friends that you follow across all the servers. So all the servers are 24-person instance, you load in, you go in, it'll be full of people, you'll be able to play with them, quest with them or ignore them, have your teams and buddies, like if you're my buddy, and you load in the game, I can just jump and immediately join you in your world, and it's seamless. Like it's basically a load screen, you're in. We wanted to make it fun for a single player, right? We wanted to make it fun for teams. Our team limit right now is 4. It's all adjustable, but our team limit right now is 4. So we wanted to make it fun for co-op 4-person level gameplay, and we wanted to make it fun for bigger like 12-on-12 death matches, right? And we're trying to, like we normally do, we're trying to jam it all in and hope it all works out.
Death never means the loss of progression or the loss of your character. Your character isn't tied to one server. As a matter of fact, you'll never even see a server when you play. You'll be in a world with dozens, not hundreds and not thousands of other players. It's the apocalypse. It's not an amusement park, okay? And you'll be able to join your friends whenever you want, and all of your progression goes with you.
How are they deciding? Are they working together against the world, or are they working together against themselves? And then what happens when you get a group of people that want to work against other players versus a group of players who want to work against the world, and then they get nukes? Do they create an online Cold War? Do they all decide to just blow up everything? So I think the nuke part is probably the one I'm most interested in seeing what they do. And we're trying to make it fun where it's fun to just launch them. Because it's very hard to like, all right, you have the codes to the nuclear missile. You're like, you know what, I don't want to launch it. If you can sort of incentivize them to, hey, it's gonna be really fun to launch it where people aren't, and make that part of the world this high-level zone. So that kind of design I like a lot. Okay, it's gonna be a high-level zone, you're gonna roll in your power armor, you're gonna make this really hard level for yourself. I'm really interested in what people do there.
The nuclear bomb issue probably won't be the main griefing issue. And the reason I believe this is because, from the sound of it, from everything I've heard, being able to launch a nuclear bomb is extremely difficult, and you are rewarded by having the area turn into a high-level zone with high-level drops. So maybe hitting a rival group with it would actually be doing them a favor because it would give them first dibs on high loot. Or maybe it will come down to the dilemma of, do we waste this incredibly expensive bomb that our guild spent all month building, all that time, all that money and resources? Do we really want to wipe out a rival guild with it? Do we want to fuck them over that bad? Or do we fire it just right over here, near us, and swarm into the high-level nuclear zone and grab up all the good loot before anybody else does? So that's one possibility. Or maybe it would be a Cold War. Two guilds who know if one person presses the button, the other would retaliate by doing the same. And no one person could ever fire the nuke. It would require two or more just to fire it. This could cause a Cold War situation. I don't think the nuke is the griefing problem. I think it's going to be a certain type of player with a minimum of one person per server doing this. There's going to be at least one. And that person is a boy, ages 12 to 15, screaming profanity and racial epithets at people, with an overly loud, distorted microphone, telling women to suck his dick and get back in the kitchen. He goes around shooting people. And because you respawn on the map where he can see you, he chases after you and kills you again and again. You die, respawn, try to get away from him. He comes after you. He'll follow you from one end of the map to the other. His entire gaming experience will be hunting you down over and over. On a server with 32 people on it, I expect 6 to 9 people who are like that. And once there are a few people on a server who are like that, it becomes the tone, it sets the mood. Even if you place a disincentive there, it would never outweigh the giddy thrill of screwing over another player and making their online gaming experience truly suck. Your tears of misery and frustration are their tears of joy. There are really a ton of people who are like that and just enjoy wrecking the experience for other people. We all know that. However, there is at least some hope. They have a lot of ideas for features, changes, and safety mechanisms to try to, prevent griefiness and all that. And they're using the beta as an opportunity to figure out which changes need to be made. Like Todd Howard said, if it's too safe, then it's boring. There needs to be chance. There needs to be drama. A particular issue for me is, firstly, the game is going to be launched on Xbox. I don't own an Xbox. It shouldn't be long after the Xbox release that it gets ported over to the Windows PC, because Xbox runs on Windows. The second reason I'm going to wait a good while before getting this game is that I don't know if my computer will run it. Fallout 4 runs like shit on my computer. The game, on first launch, does a scan of my hardware and recommends that I run the game on medium settings. However, when a settlement hits its limit, or I'm in the city, the game gets jittery and laggy. It does this even on its lowest settings, and with a graphical optimization from a mod author I can't remember. In other words, I'm running the game at below its minimum settings. I've used a lot of mods designed to get better performance out of the game, and it still plays more poorly than any other game I own. Now, if you're wondering what my hardware specs are, I'm running a pair of NVIDIA GTX 660s. My CPU is Intel 3770K, I believe is what it's called. And it's not overclocked, it's running at stock speed. And I have 16 gigs of RAM. Now the thing about running graphics cards in SLI is you do not double your VRAM. So my graphics card has 2 gigs of VRAM, and I can't add them together to make 4 because that's not how SLI works. I'm not going to go into the technical reasons why that happens. I'm just going to tell you right now, you can't add the VRAM of multiple graphics cards. So 2 gigs is not exactly a powerful card, but the GPU of two 660s are actually pretty powerful. You might be thinking it's an ancient graphic card, and to be fair, it is pretty old. But to that I say, yeah, well, it runs GTA 5 on medium just fine. And that game is an even bigger open world that allows you to get in a plane or a car and move amazingly fast compared to slowly walking around in Fallout 4. So if my setup can play GTA 5 on medium, I should easily be able to walk around slowly in Fallout 4 without, jitteriness and lagging and all that. And also, I play Skyrim with dozens of graphical mods, lighting mods, and NEMB, and it plays just fine. Here's an update, a post-video update. While logging into Fallout 4 to grab some screen caps to display for the rest of this video, I decided to run the game on Ultra settings. Since all I would be doing is snapping pics, might as well bump up the resolution. Well, it turns out, my computer can run this game on Ultra just as well as on its lowest setting. Check out the footage of me playing on Ultra and compare it to me playing on lowest, which is the first footage you've seen of me playing Fallout 4 in this video.
A joke? This has to be a joke.
Come on, girl! I need some goddamn fire support!
This coming up is pretty funny. I shoot a guy, he falls forward and bounces back. It's really weird looking.
Ow!
Wiping the floor with you.
Ow! Ow!
Now you can tell this is on Ultra because the glowing sight on my gun has a weird sort of haze around it. To be honest, I don't like that haze effect. What gets me is, if I've been able to play this game on a really high setting the whole time and get roughly the same performance on its lowest setting, I feel like an idiot for spending so long playing this game on its absolute lowest setting. I'm just walking around right now thinking, wow, I could have been playing this game on really frickin' high graphics the whole time. And so this right here is a testament to the fact that the game is just not properly optimized to run good. At least not on SLI. I hear that when this game first came out, it was not compatible with SLI. It didn't take advantage of it. And then they updated it so that it would. Well, I'm calling BS on that. When a game runs just as good on Ultra as it does its lowest settings, and that is not very well, that's an indicator that there's just something wrong. Also, another thing right here is you can tell this is on Ultra because the computer screen here actually has text. I never knew that because I always played this game on its lowest settings. But you can actually see text on the computer screen even when you haven't clicked on it. Also, and this is kind of embarrassing, I just noticed there's been a perception bobblehead here the whole time, and I never noticed it because I haven't been here since the very beginning of the game on my first playthrough. And I've only played the game one time. So the whole time there's like a perception bobblehead and I never knew it because I didn't know what a bobblehead was. And then comes the modding issue. Because this game is online, you can't possibly give modders access to server-side code. In fact, the ability to modify their own client could literally be a game-breaking exercise. You give me access to your server-side software, and the first mod I'm going to create is a paralyzed gun. Shoot someone with it one time, and they're paralyzed for an entire week in real life, or forever. And they can't die because there's no way to kill them. They're like a ghost. They can't be touched. And they can't do it, and you can't do anything because you're paralyzed. And your game is over. That's one game-breaking idea off the top of my head. Even modifying the client is dangerous. Giving someone access to your server-side software to make a mod. My God, that is the definition of breaking a game. Part of the fun of an online game is making friends, developing trust, and the danger of every stranger. But if Bethesda allows mods that go beyond the mere cosmetic, it's game over. It's too game-breaking for an online game situation. I believe the only mods we're going to get is Creation Club mods. And since those are paid mods, either the game becomes pay-to-win via Creation Club purchases, or all mods allowed are just horse armor. You know, aesthetic stuff. My problem with Fallout 76 is that Bethesda seems to want to cater to all three types of gamers. They want the old-school Fallout fans to buy this because it's just like the good old-fashioned Fallout that you know and love. And they also want to cater to modders who take Bethesda's basic design and build a whole new world with a whole new feel. Their mods get featured on Nexus. YouTubers include their mods in mod reviews. It's a way of getting some internet fame and a high five from the community. Modders love to mod. And Bethesda also wants to cater to the non-Fallout fans who want a Fortnite experience, or Destiny, Rust, Sea of Thieves, and that kind of experience. The problem is, you can't cater to the modders and the Fallout traditionalist while also catering to the online gaming crowd. Taking the game online only caters to one kind of gamer, and that's not the modder and not the traditional Fallout fan, because online breaks modding, as I just explained. And it deviates too far from the traditional Fallout that we've grown accustomed to, such as AI companions, infinite modding capabilities, a deep story that we can roleplay through. Like we build a character and we just roleplay the character because of the interactions from the NPCs that we're given. Here we could try doing some role-playing, but there's no real story we can genuinely role-play through, except for whatever main story quests there may be, and it sounds like there won't be a lot of that. But you could role-play with other people online, maybe. Maybe. And the countless hours of dialogue with voiced NPCs, the moral dilemmas, and the feeling of being an overpowered savior of the wasteland near endgame. These are things you can't traditionally, or these are the traditional things and feelings we get when playing Fallout, but that's not going to be there in the online experience. So it seems they're catering to the online gaming fans, but I think the modding community and those who are just hardcore Fallout fans are going to be really let down. At least that's something I suspect. And yet, I'd be lying if I said the idea of an online or multiplayer or co-op Fallout doesn't appeal to me, because it does. This game has so much potential. I've had wonderful experiences in the Wasteland, and so have you. And we can tell each other about our experiences, but we could never share them together. And with an online version, now we can. My first Fallout game was Fallout 4, and I was instantly hooked on the game. I got lost inside this fictional world. I would have dreams about going to the store to buy Nuka-Cola. The bright visuals on top of the rustic decayed visuals blending together in a unique and surreal way captivated me, drew me into the lore of the Fallout universe. And now we can go to the same wasteland and have these experiences together. And I think that is potentially the most awesome thing in the world. Potentially. If done right, Fallout 76 could be a truly amazing game. And it seems to me that's what Bethesda is shooting for. They seem to have put a lot of thought into the game and made sure it wouldn't just be a clone of some other online game. I think Bethesda really wants this to be something amazing and special. I think they're charting uncharted territory. And they really hope this works out, so I think they've put a lot behind it. But if done wrong, it could end up being their biggest flop. And the truth is, we won't know until the game is out, and we have a chance to actually play it.